One of the things that I was most disturbed about in this recent presidential election we had in the United States is that whereas we've got parts of our government are warning that this presidential term could be one in which China tries to move on Taiwan, and there was zero conversation in the campaign about it. None of the debates had a question about this. So here's this potential for the United States to end up in a major theater war with a rising nuclear armed power in this term, and somehow we just weren't politically interested in it. We talked about golf games, and we didn't talk about Taiwan, right? And by the way, the other thing I will say about that is, one is I don't believe China wants to attack Taiwan. I think China wants to absorb Taiwan through gray zone activities. I think they want to eventually find a government in Taiwan that will begin to make the right kinds of concessions to them, where they can begin to see that future where they've successfully absorbed Taiwan. That doesn't mean they're not going to threaten to, and it doesn't mean they're going to they're not going to take it off the table. In fact, they're putting it very squarely on the table. But I still think their objective is to do it without having to go to war. But I think that we need to be very consciously. I said, part of the reasons I'm concerned about the fact we didn't talk about Taiwan in the campaign is we should be making the investments now that we think would be important were we to have to end up in that situation where we were to end up at war. God forbid, right? God forbid. Clearly, we don't want to end up at that place, but you prepare for war to secure the peace.
Do you think that's going to change? Do you think we're going to change our policies? Do you think it's...
As I said, democracies and the United States in particular have a bad history with this. We tend to stumble into conflict and not be prepared. One of the things that we worry about a lot, I think, in our current conversation is whether we still have the ability to ramp up our defense industrial base. So during World War II, of course, we were caught unprepared, despite the fact there was a hot war going on in Europe. When December 7th, 1941 rolled around, we still were not ready, but we were able to turn our industries into defense industries pretty quickly. Now, we look around today and we wonder whether we'd still be able to do that today. I like to think that we can. It won't look like World War II. It's hard to sort of talk yourself through how that would work when a lot of the things that we used to do, and the easiest one to point to is shipbuilding, right? We don't do shipbuilding very much, and China outpaces us by something like 200%. That's of concern.
It does seem like our partnerships are our future, though, our collaboration.
Oh my goodness.